Welcome in. You didn't find this by accident. This is the Whisper Lounge, a soft space for the conversations we weren't supposed to have. While you're here, you can leave a tip using the captivate.fm link in the show bio. And if you're ready, your complimentary 7-day exploration journal is waiting. Just head to whisperlounge.club/join to claim it and be one of the first to step inside to explore. Hi everyone. So I'm sitting here making lunch in my living room and just kind of got inspired to share this episode with you all. This episode is something of a grounding moment. I keep using the phrase sex positive, I've used it in the last couple of episodes, and realized that I've never really stopped to ask, what does that even mean? Because that can mean a lot of different things probably to a lot of different people. Not in theory, not in hashtags, but in real life. So today, I want to explore what sex positivity looks like. Not as a banner, not as a belief system, but as something lived, as something felt and discovered. And in some cases, something maybe relearned. When most people hear sex positivity, a few things probably come to mind. Maybe being comfortable talking about sex, or being open to different types of relationships or even kinks. Some people may even think of it as having a lot of sex, or at least not being ashamed of wanting it. I know for sure in my experience and in some of my close friends' experience, sex positivity, or someone who is open to sensual situations, all these different terms that we use, we often get viewed as someone who just likes to have sex all the time with everyone. So having a lot of sex may be something that a lot of people think or associate with sex positivity. And sure, those can all be a part of it, or some of them. But sex positivity is not about being hypersexual or boundaryless. And it's definitely not about pretending everything is sexy or empowering all the time. For me, sex positivity has a lot more to do with freedom of thought and the freedom to think and freedom from all the things we absorbed without even questioning them. So to some extent, I think sex positivity is about deprogramming. I don't know if any of you come from a Christian, mainly an American Christian background, but there's a word deconstruction in the Christian circles. If you've heard that, you can chuckle with me. But sex positivity is about deprogramming, maybe deconstruction. So much of what we believe about sex wasn't consciously chosen by us. It came from early experiences: religion, media, relationships, silence. Sometimes the absence of conversation taught us more than words ever did. So where did it start for me? Sex positivity for me came out, and again, as a freedom of thought, as a way of living, not as a political stance or banner or byline. But for me, that started with some bi-curiosity that I had early on as a young girl that was explained away by my parents and different people in my life. So honestly, I didn't even realize it was bi-curiosity until now, later in life, looking back. But I know I had these thoughts of what it would, kissing a girl, being attracted to a girl, liking to be very cuddly and touchy with my friends, with my girlfriends. Also, this sense that I didn't get along with girls. I actually got along better with boys. Girls were too emotional to me. There was too much involved. And I think for me, because the girls didn't want to be emotionally intimate, I don't know, it played in a little bit to my development now as an adult. And I'm going to do a whole episode on bi-curiosity, so we'll talk more about that. But so it started with that, and then where it really kind of turned into this approach to life of sex positivity was after my first marriage. So I was technically a virgin. I was a technical virgin, quote unquote, until my wedding night. So I had not had sexual intercourse. I was raised in a strong Christian household where abstinence was taught, and I adhered to it. It wasn't imposed on me, really. I really believed that was important and the best thing, and that anything other than that was sinful. I did have some sexual experiences outside of intercourse. That's why I say technical virgin. But yeah, I was a virgin on my wedding night. And then I was in a marriage for about 8 years. And then we were married for 10, but we were separated. That was sexually anorexic, meaning my husband we couldn't talk about sex. We did not have sex in any way other than missionary intercourse. There was not a lot of touching. There was no oral involvement or sexual exploration at all. He would shower after every time we had sex. And, I just got the sense that I honestly don't even know what I thought during that time period, because it was all I knew. I had nothing to compare it to. I am someone who orgasms very easily, so, thank God for that. I know that's not the case for everyone. So for me, sex was pleasurable always. Missionary didn't matter. Like, I could orgasm, so I thought that was all it really was. But so after I went through my divorce, I just started realizing that I had a lot of guilt associated with sex. I felt horribly guilty before we got married. We would essentially dry hump before we got married. Like, that was the sexual release, and I didn't really understand what was happening as much with that, but I didn't know that it even had a term to it. And I felt horribly guilty about it. I felt guilty during our marriage. I didn't know how to ask for sex. I would suggest different things like, hey, we can use our hands or we can use our mouths, and I would kind of get turned down. And so I just know there was a lot of guilt for me around sex and shame. And it was about, for me, unpacking the rules that I didn't even realize that I was following. Like I said, during my marriage, truly don't even know what I thought. Like, I don't even know there was no analyzing. There was no logical unpacking of what was going on. It just was. And so I had all these rules I didn't even realize that I had assumed into my reality. So things like, and some of the rules that you guys might maybe have in your belief systems that you now recognize. And there may be rules that you guys are familiar with in your own histories that you have noticed after the fact that you kind of held to. Some of them might be things like nice girls don't initiate, desire should always lead to a relationship, or needing sex makes you shallow. As this podcast hopefully gets a little bit more popular, I'd love to get feedback from the different sexes, male and female. What are some of these, maybe across the sexes, commonalities and common rules that we adapt because of the socialization of the sexes and how they're different. But yeah, we all have these deprogramming, these assumptions and these rules that we end up having to work through. And sex positivity, to me, is the space where I get to question all of it without shame. One thing I've learned is that being sex positive doesn't mean I'm always in the mood. And it doesn't mean, as I said before, that someone is hypersexual or wants to have sex constantly or have a lot of partners or is always thinking about sex, any of that. It doesn't mean I never have triggers or that every experience is amazing. It just means that I can talk about it. I can say no without guilt, which I say that, but that's actually one of my struggling points, is how to say no. But it's not because I feel guilty when I say no. It's more because I don't want to cause upset in the other person when I say no, if that makes sense. But I can say no. I can say yes without feeling like I've compromised something. Sex positivity definitely includes boundaries. It includes pause. It's not about being game for anything. It's about being honest with myself. And honesty requires self-awareness. I can't be honest with myself if I'm not aware of things about myself. And to develop that self-awareness, I have to be willing to dig and ask questions and answer those questions. So with that self-awareness comes a little bit more of, you can kind of explore these 3 words and how they're different and how their meanings are combined or may overlap. But they're 3 words: sensuality, curiosity, and permission, which are really important to this idea of sex positivity. There's a big difference between being sexual and being sensual. They overlap, but there is a difference. Or I should say, they can overlap, but there is a difference between them. There's a big difference between performing for someone else and actually tuning in to what feels good to me. And I think a lot of sex positivity is about curiosity. What do I like? What feels good in my body? Can I give myself permission to want something, even if I don't act on it? It's not about the behavior. It's about the self-awareness behind it. Another component or part of sex positivity is letting go of shoulds. For me, one of the most powerful shifts was letting go of the word should. I should want sex more often, or I should want less sex, or I should be more adventurous, or I should be more mainstream. I should feel satisfied by intercourse, or I should feel satisfied by insert your norm here. All of the shoulds, and honestly, I may spend an episode just having to dig into my own experience of what my shoulds were. I definitely know I had a lot of right and wrong going on. So there weren't a lot of even shoulds. It was almost like cannot, prohibited. There wasn't even like a conditional, like maybe I shouldn't. It was just kind of like a no. So that may be an interesting exercise, is just to dig into what my shoulds even were. But sex positivity for me is the process of learning to trade should for truth and honesty. Even if the truth is messy or inconvenient, or even if it changes from one day to the next. I want to value that truth. I want to value my ability to be honest with myself and honest with the people around me as a result. So wherever you are with this, maybe take a moment to check in. Again, sex positivity is something that will come up often in the episodes, and I really wanted to define it. Ask yourself, what are some of the beliefs I've carried around sex that I didn't consciously choose? Do I give myself permission to want and to not want? Where do I still feel like I'm performing? Where do I feel like I'm stuck in a box about what I think is sexy or arousing, and I even can't get out of that box? I find myself wondering, well, could I be aroused by more? Couldn't that be fun if more things were arousing to me? This isn't about fixing anything. It's just about noticing. Noticing is enough. So, what is sex positivity? It's not a label. It's not a performance. It's definitely not about being liberal or provocative or even open-minded. For me, it's really about honesty. It's about listening to my body. It's about giving myself the freedom to explore, to say yes, to say no, and to not apologize for any of it. It's a practice, not a belief. And if that's where you are too, or where you want to be, then you're already on your way. And as we explore all of these topics and get to have more and more conversations, this is the perspective that I want to be able to come from. That I just want to have the conversation. I just want to notice. I just want to be aware. And I want to be able to do all of that with freedom. Freedom of thought. freedom to question, freedom to be curious, freedom to change my answer, freedom to change my mind, freedom to explore. So I'm looking forward to doing all of this with you all, and I look forward to getting to spend some more time with you. So until next time. Thank you for being here. Tip the lounge or grab your free journal while it lasts at whisperlounge.club.